I brought the boot.
Yeah.
Scott said you got to bring the boot. So here's the boot on the floor in front of me, and it's my right boot. And I think just falling over that log, and I'm walking backwards, and my foot comes up right in her face, and she grabbed the boot.
Wow.
And bit down, eh?
Welcome to the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast.
Welcome to it. This is another episode of the Wilderness Wavelength Podcast. I'm your host, George, and exciting episode tonight. Scott Sunderwald back on the show.
Howdy.
Welcome to the show, Scott.
Good to be back.
And, well, you introduced the guest that we have with us tonight, too.
Yeah, we've been talking this up all summer long.
Yeah.
Morris is a slippery fish. We finally got him here, so this is great. I've known Morris, I think, about 20 years when I was looking back. Yeah. And,
probably, yeah.
Yeah, he's a real outdoorsman, the real deal. He's spent a career in forestry, big into outdoor rec. Of course, the big story tonight is surviving a grizzly bear attack, so we're going to dig into that.
Yeah.
But I'll give a quick bio here. I think I have about 6 pages of bio, so I'm going to go through this rather fast. But
Morris
You
is the
must
first
have made
guest.
some of that up. 6 pages.
Morris is the first guest that we've got a bio for, too, I think. Hey?
Yeah, I
That's
know.
great.
It's great. Yeah, so...
Well, Scott insisted I do that.
Oh, that's a good idea,
Well,
Scott.
I knew
I like
there was
this.
a lot here, and we're uncovering some gems that we didn't even know. So, born way back in 1953 in a farming community of Birch Hills, Saskatchewan. So, I looked that up because I'd never heard of Birch Hills. And the population is 1,064 people. So, when your family left town, they had to change the sign, I suppose, hey? The population sign.
You know, we actually never lived in Birch Hills. We were farmers.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to say like 20 kilometers out of town.
All right. So,
But I was, they carted my mom off to the hospital in Birch Hills
right.
for my arrival. And then I spent 2 years on the farm.
Right.
And a farm then was like a quarter section.
Yeah. Yeah.
With a house and a barn and,
So Birch Hills was the big city back then, yeah. And then you moved to Prince Albert, worked with or joined the Boy Scouts, and that was a big opportunity to learn wilderness adventures and winter camping, and then moved to Drumheller, Alberta. Joined the Junior Forest Ranger program. I'm going fast here. I know this is flying by, but we're going to circle back around to some of this stuff. Joined the Nate Forestry program, did timber cruising in Mackenzie, BC, met a lot of Devil's Club and black bears, went to the forestry school in Hinton, which is where this podcast is happening from, went to Prince George and worked in a forestry consulting company worked in Fort Nelson to Revelstoke to the south. And we're definitely got to dig into this. You were doing about 2 years being helicopter dropped in the middle of nowhere with a food and a tent for 10 days at a time.
Wow.
Many encounters with bears, including a bluff charge by a very large grizzly that also bothered you for the entire length of a job. So that's not the grizz that got you later, but we'll get into that. That was a preamble. That was foreshadowing.
Yeah. Were they related?
Yeah, exactly. 1976, moved back to Hinton, and you did a whack of stuff here locally, tree planting supervisors, silviculture. You helped develop many of the forestry roads here. You worked with pine beetle in the 2000s. You also worked even with some of the caribou harvest plans. There's so much we could dive into here. And then just a bit about the family and recreation. 2 kids, love to canoe camp in Wells Gray, Myrtle Lake. I know you're a big downhill skier. Every time I go to Marmot, there's Morris on the slopes. A lot of cross-country skiing and backcountry skiing as well, and including some snow caving in the Columbia ice fields. Now you've embraced some mountain biking. You're also a moose and deer hunter, although it sounds like you need to dust off that rifle a little bit.
Well, yeah, that kind of went on the back burner after I quit work.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's the time to pick it up, man.
Well, yeah, yes and no, but I mean, there's two of us at home now, and somebody doesn't like deer meat.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, gotcha.
yeah, anyway, you know how that goes.
Yeah. And last but not least, fly fishing and camper van. So there you go, folks. This is the all-round outdoorsman. Lots of great stories we can dig into tonight. So
one of the first things you messaged me, you said Morris asked, "Do you know Calvin Shantz?" That's my dad. And so how do you know my dad?
Well, he was in the Nate forestry program.
Okay. Yeah.
And of course, Calvin was from Edson, and I even brought my yearbook, and I just showed
Old
George.
Picture of Dad.
I showed
Long
George
hair.
Long
a
hair.
picture of his hippie father.
Yeah.
And he was a pretty a guy that you couldn't miss, around town.
Yeah.
And he drove I'm going to say a '69 Dodge Dart.
Yeah.
Muscle car.
That's what he's always looking for now too. Every time he's shopping, I got to get a new. The 69's his favorite there.
What a small world, though, when I found out you do George's dad. I was
Well,
like,
then I was
what are the
reading
odds?
Morris's biography that he sent us there too, and you said one of your memories from forest school was Harry Edgecombe, and we grew up like right next to Harry and Wanda, and like my dad's dad, Ben Shantz, was him and Harry were at forestry crew for a long time too. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I saw that
And
name. So, oh wow, cool.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of connections going on.
Yeah.
Harry Edgecombe, his daughter, didn't she end up as a vet?
Mavis,
Mavis
Yeah.
in Edson?
Yeah.
And she was a good friend of friends of ours
Yeah.
that lived in Hinton for years until they retired, and they ran King Drug for years. And so
Yeah, Wanda, Harry's wife, passed away a couple years ago. Like my mom's best friend, she was over there every day, and so Harry's grandson now, Scott, bought the farm, so he's there with his kids, and we get a chance to see them. So yeah, it's cool seeing that name pop up. That's great.
yeah.
One of the other things I wanted to bring up too, because this was like earlier on in your career, was I think you were a forest ranger in the forest ranger program there. And you said you helped create the Emerson Lake Campground?
Yeah, that was the junior forest warden program.
Okay, forest warden, yeah.
And I'm taxing my memory now, but actually that summer, my birthday is July 4th, and I turned 18 that summer.
Yeah.
And so I was legal to go in, and there were two of us on like a 20-man crew that could go in the bar.
Okay.
Or go and buy beer for everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And the second month, like the first month, we were camped out at the Cashpercott Forest and did a lot of work at the school.
Okay.
With that museum.
Yeah, right in Hinton here.
All I can remember is wrecking a pair of jeans, peeling all the logs for the log museum, right?
Yeah.
Sappy butt. And and then the second month was out at Emerson Lakes.
Yeah. One of my favorite campgrounds. We're there yearly. Like we're going next week to spend.
Oh, are you?
Yeah, 3
Great
days
spot.
out there. How do you guys choose a spot like that? Is it chosen for you? Like
it was chosen. Like it had started. Like the road was put in there.
Okay.
And they had started it, so we were kind of working more in the back end.
Yeah.
You come down to the lake.
Yeah.
There was a dock there and some campsites, but we actually just put some more in.
Cool.
I remember we had a big Forest Service gravel truck, so we were all learning how to drive a 2-speed axle, and out in the middle of nowhere.
At age 18.
At age 18.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. And when I saw that in your bio, like I got to ask him about that because we're there yearly, and I was just trying to figure out like a campground like that. Like, is it a bunch of Crownland campers kind of initiated, and then the province takes over something and decides to build it, or how do you decide to build it on a lake? Like, what justifies a campground going in?
I have no idea.
Great campground.
And actually, I haven't been out there for a long time. But is it now? Is it a campground that's run by
Alberta
by
Parks
the company and the government?
Contracts it out to, I think, Fox Creek Development's running it. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking.
They take pretty good care of it, and we always. I don't want to give away too much, but we got a favorite site there that overlooks the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it stocked with rainbow trout back in those
Yep,
days?
it was.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they've been stocking that for many years.
it
And I
was
think,
there
I
long
think brookies
before
too.
long before we ended up out there, and that would have been that would have been what would that be, like in 1970?
Okay. Yeah.
Wow.
I was out there.
Yeah. Wild. Cool thing to have on the bio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do we head to next then, Scott?
Well, I definitely need to hear about the Devil's Club and Black Bears in Mackenzie, and then to segue into the helicopter dropped
Oh yeah.
in the middle of nowhere. You did that for almost 2 years, 10 days at a time. I mean, that's crazy. I bet with OH&S they wouldn't do that anymore. You were also charged by a very large grizzly at that time. So maybe peel back the layers on some of that early forestry work, and specifically on bears, and what those early days were like for you in forestry.
Yeah, so first year forestry was in Edmonton at NATE, and then once we survived that year, the summer's approaching, and the instructors were really proactive on getting us all jobs. And so this job, it was a summer job, came up in Mackenzie, BC, and it was working for British Columbia Forest Service. And there was a gentleman from that company that came to Edmonton and did the interviews. And he hired myself, and there was, I think, 3 other guys. So we all went up there, and Mackenzie, I'm not sure how, I'm going to say it was maybe 4,000 people at the time. Real happening spot with basically with logging. But where we were going was across Williston Lake. It was called Blackwater Logging Camp. And that's where we spent the summer. And the odd weekend we were able to get into town. Nobody had a car, so we were stuck in this logging camp and basically cruising timber. And I think we were all compassmen, right? So the guy in the front, crashing through the woods and the Devil's Club. And I have pictures standing in Devil's Club. Like, we do have some Devil's Club around here, but I don't think many people have seen it. And
What's Devil's Club?
Yeah, okay, I didn't bring one with me, but it's a leafy, the word devil comes from, it's got spines all over it, up the stalk, on the bottom of the leaves.
Yeah.
And here, like I had seen, like the first place I saw it here was way down in the Embarrass, down by Coal Valley.
It's also in Sundance Provincial Park, which is, I was surprised to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And in BC, of course, everything's bigger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Devil's Club there, I have a picture somewhere in an album, me standing in Devil's Club with my hard hat in my hand as high as I can reach. And you can just see my hard hat over this mat of leaves. And this Devil's Club, the stalks are as big as your leg.
Sheesh.
And you would step on a stalk in front of you, and it's like a vine. I mean, it just grows in all kinds of weird places, and it snakes along the ground. You could step on one here, and it would come flying, 10 feet to your left and hit and slap you in the side of the head. That kind of program. So not fun.
No, when the spines break off in your skin, they get horribly infected. So that's part of the name.
Oh,
yeah.
I started my career in BC coast as well, so I'm very familiar with Devil's Club too. But you mentioned you bumped into a lot of black bears in that country. So this was before the Grizz encounters. But were the black bears always well behaved, or?
Generally running the other way. Other than if we were in one of these fly camps, they seem to like to come around at night. And we probably weren't the tidiest campers. Like we didn't have our food slung up in a tree or, anyway. No, black bears, yeah, they were kind of a dime a dozen and, always seemed to be going the other direction.
And this was before bear spray, so you guys were probably out there just with nothing. Hey?
Yeah, no. Yeah. Typically on those fly camps, and I'm kind of leave the summer job behind, and now I've graduated, and I'm working out of Prince George for the Industrial Forestry Service, it was called, and we're flying here, we're flying there, all over the province, cruising timber, some road layout, and we would take a couple of firearms with us on a fly camp just to keep in camp, but nobody carried anything. We had too much.
So were those 12 gauge shotguns for protection, or 30-06, or what were you
I don't
using?
remember having a shotgun. It was like rifles, and I didn't own one, but I think the actual company had a couple that we could take with us. Probably a 30-06, or I don't remember, but anyway, yeah. And the one job that sticks out was northeast of Prince George. There's a little. It's actually a sawmill. It's called Anzac Sawmill, and there's an Anzac River, and it's there's a Parsnip River. Anyway. And so we're driving there, and then we're getting in a helicopter and flying further off to the northeast. And that's the job that big grizzly did bluff charge me. And I was walking down, we call it a baseline. You set up lines, and then your cruise strips go off a baseline. And we're walking down this baseline to get to where we had to start work. And my compassman, who I think at the time was one of the bosses in the office, his son. And anyway, he's behind me, and he finally catches up to me, and I'm standing there, and he comes up to me, and he shakes me, and he says I was white as a ghost, right? And I'm standing there, and the bear's gone, right? And he's looking at me, and he goes, "What's wrong?" And then I told him what was going on, and then, but you got to keep working.
Yeah.
Right.
So back that up. So the bear, how far was the bear when you saw it, and it ran right up to you or past you, or what?
I saw him. He's probably 30 meters away, and between that bear and myself was this massive blowdown, and that's where he stopped, and that was probably 15 meters away from me. And he just his front legs were up on the blowdown, and then he realized what I was, and that was basically it. So, yeah.
Almost a revenant experience, but not quite. Eh?
Yeah.
What is the reason for going in and doing like the helicopter in for 10 days at a time? Like, are you guys scoping out timber and then like crews coming in? Is that the idea behind that, or?
We were cruising timber for various companies in the province.
Yeah. And then you're marking areas like this is a good area to bring in trucks, or?
No, a timber cruise, you're just running straight lines through the bush, and every so often you put in what they call a prism plot.
Okay.
And what you're doing is getting a reading of the volume of timber in a particular area. Yeah.
Huh. And that's back in the days of the hip chain. You had a hip chain running the string out there.
No, yeah, it was all chains.
Yeah.
60, help me, I think it was 66 links in a chain.
Right.
So there was no feet or meters, and don't ask me why.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm old enough I did some forestry training too. We did hip chains and compass too.
Yeah.
So when I got into the business, we were just starting with GIS, GPS, and that was revolutionary. That was
I never got into that until
30 some years ago.
Came over here. But yeah, it was this chain, it was metal, a metal chain, and it was links. And
it was a real chain.
Oh yeah. I mean, not chain link chain, but a metal, flat metal chain, about quarter inch wide.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah, my hip chain was a spool of thread, so
Yeah.
different times.
We didn't even have those then. Yeah. God, I'm aging myself.
And then you come to Hinton for work then, forestry?
Then I got bushed. I quit that job in Prince George. I remember the day I quit, and we were actually staying in a motel in McBride, and we were just out by the West Twin, park on the highway, snowshoe up through this old clear cut, and then into the bush, and then up, and then over this mountain and down the other side, across a creek, and then up another one. And we're doing this like day after day.
Yeah.
And I was in charge, right? I mean, there's only two of us, so, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
And one day we drove out there from McBride, and I stopped, and I looked up that hill, and I said, I cannot do this anymore. And the guy working with me says, what? Are you serious? I said, yeah, I'm done. and back to Prince George we go. And my boss back in town, he tried everything. Oh, take a couple weeks off. No, we don't want to lose you, da-da-da. And I go, if I do that, I'll be back. I don't want to be back.
Yeah.
I knew there was brighter pastures on the east side of the Rockies.
Yeah, a little flatter ground.
/ flat ground, no Devil's Club.
Yeah.
No bears, right?
No bears over here.
Yeah,
That's
there's
right.
no bears here.
And then you moved to Hinton then after that?
Back to Hinton in 76. Yep.
And you met your wife on a tree planting crew, is that what I hear?
She was on my tree planting crew.
Wow.
You were the leader?
I came to Hinton, and I was supposed to be doing regen surveys, but there was a fella. There was a big tree planting program, and all the tree planters were hourly paid, and there were 4 crews equals 4 big passenger vans equals 4 supervisors, and then 3 other supervisors overseeing the whole program. And about a week into the job I thought I was going to do, they came to me and said, oh, you're going to be a tree planting supervisor now because one guy keeps getting lost. And I'm not mentioning any names, right? Because nobody probably knows them. And anyway, it is what it is. And so I couldn't believe my good fortune. I went from 10-day fly camps in 30 above to 30 below to supervising tree planting.
Yeah.
And I'll just add that a lot of these tree planters were female. They were all from the U of A, all summer students. And on hot days, yeah, it was
Better than Devil's Club.
better than Devil's Club and Swan. And there are no mosquitoes out here, eh?
Yeah, I don't know
In
what's
this
up
country.
with that. Yeah. It's
Unreal.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm a tree planting supervisor, driving a van load of girls and some guys, and all over the forest management area. Yeah, it was a good time. And I did that. Well, I only did that job I think for one summer, but then I was still with the tree planting program for a couple more years. And that's when my wife and I kind of hit it off. I think maybe the second or third year. Well, I came in 76 and we got married in 79. So, yeah.
Yeah, worked out. Yeah. The other things I want to talk about on the list here, well, I just wrote down a few notes from your bio, but that you were like, after doing that, then you started working on like creating like some roads around here too then?
Oh, I laid out lots of roads in this country. Yeah, lots of roads. And
you got a favorite one?
It would probably be the Peppers Lake Road.
Peppers Lake, just off Highway 40 there,
Yeah.
back in there? Okay, cool.
And it goes way back in there, and that took and of course, when we're designing these roads, there's no access, right?
Yeah.
Like we're the first ones in there, which is always kind of neat. Just exploring new ground. Although there were, having said that, there were cowboys from Brule running cows back in that country where that road goes, right? So
were they happy to have a road going through then? Was that like
yes and no?
Yeah.
I think probably mostly they were okay with it. But anyway, I mean, it gave them better access, and during the time of that road being developed, they were submitting applications for more grazing leases.
Okay.
So it gave them access, with their horse trailers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of leads into, I'll just break it up with our podcast question of the week this week was, what is your favorite road in Alberta? Lots of votes coming in. Number one, any guesses what the number one vote was for best road in Alberta?
I'm guessing Highway 93.
Yeah.
Columbia
Icefields Parkway.
Icefield Parkway, yeah.
The second place was Highway 22, like the Cowboy Trail.
Yeah.
Nice highway too. Check out. Votes for Highway 11 between Rocky and like the Icefields Parkway. Forestry Trunk Road got a lot of votes too. Drove that the other week from here all the way down to Caroline. Man, that's a nice road.
It
and
is.
There's so many different little spots you can pull off. And a couple votes for the Swanson Road too. So a few little roads back around here too. So
Right?
You got a favorite road in Alberta, Morris, that you like driving?
You mentioned the Cowboy Trail.
Yeah.
And I was a cowboy when I was a kid. When I was 14 and 15, I lived right by Chain Lakes, and I worked for my uncle who had a ranch there.
Chain Lakes, Kananaskis.
Chain Lakes Provincial Park.
Okay. Cool.
Down Highway 22.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so
that's a nice area.
It's a nice area.
Yeah. I love the Icefields Parkway. I love doing that once a year, but it is like you're always on someone's always on you. Whereas the Trunk Road or like those backcountry roads, a little less traffic.
I just rode down there 2 days ago on my motorcycle.
Oh wow!
To check out like right down to Kirkesland where the fire started.
Yeah. A little rough, a little mucky. How was it on the bike?
No, this is 93.
Oh, okay, the Parkway. Okay, I thought you meant the Trunk Road.
Like they opened it just a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
For traffic, so I thought, I had to go and
check it out.
I had to go check out the fire.
How's it look?
Pretty sober.
Yeah.
Pretty sober to see that.
Yeah, we haven't made a drive into Jasper yet.
From one side, the east side of the valley right up into the rocks, and thank goodness it didn't do that on the west side, or Marmot would have got cooked as well.
So Kirkesland's burned, the campground, Wabasso, I heard, most of that whole valley.
Kirkesland campground, and they were saying that's where it started, quite, and it obviously did, but it was a little bit south of there as well. But the campground didn't look too bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just looking at it from the road, right?
Yeah.
Athabasca Falls, Sunwapta Falls, all that burned?
Yeah.
Gee.
Oh,
wow.
Huh.
Valley of the Five.
Oh, man.
That'll be a different hike.
And the Horseshoe Lake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we just did Sunwapta Falls here last month. Took a little hike into it. So, yeah. Scott, you got a favorite road you drive in Alberta?
Icefield Parkway, when you look it up, it actually ranks as one of the most beautiful highways in the whole world.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
So, and I believe it, especially if you go at the right time of year with those, go in the fall when the leaves are turning color,
mm-hmm.
the larches are popping, the poplars and the dark spruce, and then you get those turquoise blue lakes like Pado and Bow Lake. It's absolutely breathtakingly gorgeous. And you got Wilcox Pass. I mean, anyone who's listening to this around the world, you will not be disappointed. Although a good chunk of it's burned now. But that's interesting yet to see as well, And it'll come back. Nature finds a way.
You know, it's I mean, already there's green grass coming up.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's amazing. So, yeah, we just got to hang in there, and like you said, it'll all come back.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. There's a lot of hunting roads I like, but I won't say what they are on the podcast. Right. And Morris has probably helped a lot of them. Well, you mentioned you were hired by Jack Wright, so he was a bit of a legend. I got to work with Jack Wright for a bit. And,
who's Jack Wright? That name sounds super familiar.
Morris, you should. He was a chief forester, right?
For
many years.
Yeah, that's right.
There's like a Jack Wright
Road.
Okay.
Jack Wright campsite. Yeah, he's quite the guy.
The JW.
Yeah.
The JW Road.
Yeah, I may have taken a few animals out of there, deer and bears and whatnot. Yeah. Yeah.
Wild. Okay, should we dig into the grizzly?
Let's go for the story.
Hear about this.
So that was, well, I brought this map, but
what's the map of?
Well, it's just the forest management area, and it just like I was right up at the far north end of the forest management area. So that's where I encountered that sow with the two little cubs.
Okay.
And here's Hinton. Well, Hinton's right there. So
so you're a little north of Hinton there.
Yeah, basically straight north of Hinton as a crow flies.
Yeah.
But a lot of road to get up in there.
So you at work then, or what are you doing out there?
We're developing harvest plans up there, and that followed in the that was being proactive to the mountain pine beetle that initially came from the north.
Yeah.
To threaten the forest management area.
Yeah.
And the timber. So, and of course, you know, mountain pine beetle likes the biggest, juiciest pine trees that they encounter. And as you know, and with that in mind, we focused our attention on that kind of wood, right? We're trying to get all that pine before they did.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
And we were developing fairly large cuts, and that cut that we were in that day back in June of 2010 was one of these larger cut block layouts, targeting mountain pine beetle susceptible stands.
You're in there with your dog too?
That was our first dog. His name was Buddy.
Yeah.
He was a black lab cross.
Okay.
SPCA special.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And we got him when my kids were at home.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Oh, Dad, can we get a dog?
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll just go and walk some at the SPCA. So, and this was my wife Jody.
Yeah.
And my son Jesse, and Farrell might have been involved. And and then they found this lab, and he was a great dog. I'm a dog fan, but you know, just and so I'm trying to think. So that was 2010. He lived till he was, I think, about 16. Anyway, so he was midlife, healthy dog, and and he was my bush companion. I had a summer student with me that day as well, and he's a forester, and he still lives in town here.
Okay.
And still works for the sawmill. And but that day he was a summer student. I think it was his last summer, and then he got on full time the next year. And so we're up there. You know, it's like a 2-hour drive up there, and we had never, you know, it's a big block, and that day we were going to finish it. There was an area that was going to be done, and go find another spot. And so we parked the truck. We both walked. There's lots of seismic lines, and I had the summer student. We were doing lots of retention patches, and it was a lot of pine in this area, with small clumps of aspen, which seemed like a logical thing to ribbon out for retention.
Mm-hmm.
So I I had I want to use his name, but I probably shouldn't, right? Anyway, I had my summer student attend to some of these aspen retention patches. So I left him, and then I carried on by myself to the same trail I had walked the day before. And my dog Buddy, of course, he wants everybody to be together, right? So he's kind of lollygagging because he wants the summer student to come with us, da-da-da, and I'm walking, and I'm, come on, buddy, let's go. And then there's one spot, there was quite a hill, and it's a little quad access seismic line.
Okay.
Kind of a zero sight line is what they were doing up in that country. So I'm walking up there, and it's open pine aspen, and it was really windy that day, really windy. And I just breached the top of the hill. The dog is still at the bottom of the hill. And I'm going to say the hill is probably from here to the front of your house, long. And I get to the top of the hill, and it's flat. And I look back, and I can see the dog down there. And then I turn around again, and out from there, all of a sudden, boom, there's a grizzly sow with two little cubs. And these cubs, I kid you not, were black and about the size of a large house cat, right?
Oh, wow.
And my first, and they were 20 meters, 25 meters away from me. The wind was blowing from her right towards me. But my thought was, oh, man, if the dog sees those little cubs, he's going to think
Let's
they're
play.
cats.
Yeah.
Right? And game on. But, of course, Buddy is still down at the bottom of the hill because he's wondering where the summer student is. And so, again, I turn, I look down the hill, I look back at the bear, and just like that, she's full speed right at me.
Oof.
And, like, I threw my hands up.
Yeah.
I hollered maybe more than once.
Yeah.
And I started to back up a little bit, and I tripped on a log. Back I go. I'm on the ground, and she's like right there. I threw this. I brought the boot.
Yeah.
Scott said you got to bring the boot. So here's the boot on the floor in front of me, and it's my right boot. And I threw, I think, just falling over that log, and I'm walking backwards, and my foot comes up right in her face, and she grabbed the boot.
Wow.
And bit down, eh? And I go, oh, okay, so this is not good.
What's happening?
And I can feel like she's bit right through the boot into my foot. But with all the commotion, I mean, that was seconds, and then all of a sudden, the dog is there beside me barking.
Yeah.
And the bear sees the dog, lets go of me, and chases the dog back down the hill.
Oh boy.
So I pop up.
Yeah.
And I've got my bear spray on my belt, and I get it out, and I'm looking down the hill, and I no sooner they're running down the hill, and all of a sudden, boom, she's coming back towards me, and the dog is right on her tail. This whole thing, the dog never got touched.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is amazing. I couldn't believe it. So the dog and the bear breached the top of the hill. Now we're all on the flat, and the dog pushes the bear away from me. I didn't take the safety off the bear spray.
No.
Note to self.
Yeah.
Or
Take
anybody
that off.
listening.
Yeah. It's
and
common,
if you,
it's common
if you
problem.
have bear spray, know how to use it.
Yeah.
I was in Canadian Tire yesterday, and there was 2 tourists buying bear spray, and I was next in line at the counter, and I wanted to tell them first they had the little ones.
Oh
And I
yeah.
wanted to say, you should buy the big ones.
Buy the big one. Yeah. Yeah.
And go and practice with them. anyway, I'd practiced with bear spray. I just, in all the commotion, I forgot to take that little clip out, right?
At that point.
And I was like this, and she's right there, like 6 feet away from me. And then the dog chasing the bear again, and the bear runs over the other direction, like away from where her cubs were.
Yeah.
You can't see the cubs now. She pushed them.
Yeah.
I guess pushed them off into the bush. So then she runs off the other direction about 10, 15 meters. And now I've got the bear spray clip off. I'm ready. And I'm facing her, and she looks at me and kind of, and there's no growling, no baring of teeth.
Okay.
She's just this really nice looking grizzly bear.
Yeah.
Small, probably, I don't know, 2-year-old, 3-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And she looks at me, and the dog is like right beside me, and she says, "No, I think I've probably had enough."
Yeah, not today.
And she broke it off from there and just circled around in front of us and over to where her cubs had gone, and off she went.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like it was a pretty good gouge out of the boot.
Yeah.
Like, mess up your foot much at all?
No.
Or? No? Just boot.
So all this is, okay, it's over, right? And I'm standing there, and I'm going, holy, I cannot, like this, this took maybe 45 seconds, the whole thing, right? And I go, holy man, I can't believe I would live through that. That was insane. So I go, well, we should go back. I'm thinking, well, we'll go back and see where the summer student's at. So I walked back down the way we come, and I got to where he was working, and he had actually come out on a seismic line. He's walking towards me, and I'm going, man, you will not believe what just happened.
So he missed the whole thing.
Hey?
He missed the whole thing.
Oh, yeah. I said, look at my boot. So now we're sitting on the edge of the seismic line on a log, and I'm taking my boot off because I know she bit my foot. And then when I take my sock off, there's a little bit of blood. One of her tooth went into my little toe, just on the side of my little toe.
Yeah.
Got my first aid kit out of my cruiser's vest. Got one little Band-Aid out.
Yeah.
Taped up this wound. Put my sock back on. Put the boot back on. And then I said, well, we're here. We're just about done this area. And I know that bear and those cubs are like, they're booking it. They're gone, right?
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about seeing them again. I think we should go up where I was and finish it. So that's what we did. We actually finished the day's work up there and got done.
Wow.
And we didn't have to go back there. Then I got back to town, and people were thinking that was maybe not a very good choice.
Yeah, maybe not.
I'm going, well, you weren't there. I mean, the choice, it's done. It's, anyway.
Did you feel pretty shook up like that night looking back at it or anything?
I guess in some respects, yes. It was a little, eyes wide open that night,
Your foot's in the mouth of a bear.
It never really deterred me from going back.
Yeah.
Going back at it.
Huh.
Yeah. And,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a few questions. So we're going to dissect this a little bit. So do you think that female bear knew the dog was there before she attacked or not?
Before she attacked me, no.
Okay, so
because that wind was like a Chinook wind, right?
So she wouldn't have smelled the dog or seen it, because that was always a question, right? People always have that question: is a dog a liability or an asset in the bush? And usually it's a liability because bears will see dogs as wolves, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So that wouldn't have brought on the attack. It was simply that you were there, wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, and for our listeners, it's a family program, but so I'll make this as little gory as I can. But I've studied a lot of grizzly attacks, and most often they do attack the face and the head. Mm-hmm. And people who do survive those attacks they're often scalped or worse. You know, multiple staples, putting their faces back together. And that reason is the bears attack each other that way, right?
That's right.
So my question for you, the foot going up, was that like instinctual, or did you think I'd rather sacrifice my foot than my face, or what? Was there any rationale, or is this you're just going through the motions at that point?
It's just like I'm on an adrenaline high, and when I was walking backwards, tripped on that log, and now I'm on my back, and she's like right there, and I put my foot up right in front of her.
So that was kind of an instinctual move. You're like, I gotta put some space between us.
And when they say fight a black bear,
right,
play dead for a grizzly. It's funny, like that never entered my mind.
No, I think
to roll over and cover my head, or
by the sounds of it, you did the right thing. I don't know. Had you played dead, I think she could have been chewing you up a bit, right? The playing dead isn't get out of jail free card that the bear just walks away. Sometimes they'll rough you up a bit, and that can have lifelong scars. Wow. Yeah. So, I mean, I was thinking about this today. I mean, how many people can say they were attacked by a grizzly on this planet? Very few. And how many of those can say they came out fairly unscathed?
Right.
So you had a little puncture wound on your foot there. So that's pretty amazing.
I've read all the stories too, right? Like every book about grizzly encounters, I think I've read them. Yeah. Down in Waterton, there was a good one.
Oh yeah.
And people got mauled up.
Yeah, messed up. Bad. If they did survive, many of them wished they hadn't. It was that bad.
God, there was a guy just on the news last night. It was down in Nova Scotia, a black bear, and he was like, his head. I mean, he was being interviewed, right? But he had over 100 stitches. He was showing his arm, and his scalp.
Jeez.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, the sheer power of the bears is unbelievable. So in that case, your dog was a huge lifesaver to you. Yeah.
And after the kids brought that dog home, and he came to work with me, and we had another dog after that. His name was Harley, and now we have our third dog, Sadie, and they've all been in the bush. Ironically, they've all treed black bears.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Every one of those dogs. The second one, right in the bike park up here. Right in the bike park proper.
Yeah.
There was a black bear, and the dog put it up a big spruce tree.
Wow.
And the other ones were at work. Like, I'm going through the bush, and there's a black bear in front of us.
What did work have to say about this encounter?
About this grizzly encounter?
Yeah. Were you shut down for a bit then, or
just in that area?
Yeah.
The fellow I was working for at the time, he was. I mean, he's a biologist, and it was. I'm not sure what more to add.
We before we started recording, you said like the next day you went into work with the boot and you just put some glue on it because that was the only pair of boots you had. So
right, okay, yeah. And the Fish and Wildlife from Hinton called me, because they wanted to try and get a DNA swab off the boot.
Yeah,
and now I don't know if that was to go along with the grizzly program that was running at the time.
Yeah, what would be the point of that, Scott? You have any idea?
Well, I don't think there would have been any attempt to put this bear down from an attack like that. She was just doing
I would hope not.
What she should as a mother, right? But that's interesting for sure. Wow. And so after this, like, were you a little more gun shy? Like, were you walking, looking over your shoulder all the time? You had your safety tab off, and because I've had some bad bear encounters, but not quite that bad. And they've made me more alert, I'll tell you that much.
Well, I think I definitely more aware, but I mean, I wasn't nervous, you know, and people, you know, they, like, I just went back out there, you know, and continued on.
And you said your daughter forced you to finally go to the
Well,
doctor.
no, that's another. So the other part, like, I think that was what I don't know what I said, June 3rd. I'm thinking it was a Monday or a Tuesday in June that happened. Now, my daughter's a nurse, and she grew up in Hinton, and a lot of her really good friends are still here. And one of her girlfriends was a nurse at the hospital. So, of course, my daughter finds out about this bear attack, and so does her friend at the Hinton Hospital. And I think it was the next day she phones me. And she says, I want you to get up to the hospital ASAP because you got bit by a wild animal. And wild animals could have rabies. And I kind of, you know, seriously?
Yeah.
You know, a grizzly bear with 2 cubs, rabies? You know, not likely. She goes, yeah, maybe not likely, but if it happened, you're dead. You get up here. And then she phoned me, you know, and I kind of sloughed it off. She phones again the next day or a couple days after, and she said, if you don't get up here, I'm sending the RCMP to your house to pick you up. Oh, my God. All right. So up to the hospital I go, and I'm in the emergency. And by now, everybody in the Hinton Hospital knows about this encounter.
Right.
And knows that I'm coming, right? And so, yeah. So, and my little toe had just about healed over, right? Mm-hmm. And the doctor, he scrubs the heck out of that thing, and it now makes it bleed again, right? So I'm in one of the emergency rooms, and he goes out, and I can hear him talking on the phone to Edmonton. It was comical, like I can only hear his side of the conversation. He goes, yeah, the guy got bit by a grizzly. Yeah, a grizzly. yeah, he's fine. Just a little cut on his foot. You know. Anyway. So, and as a result of that, I end up going to the health clinic for rabies shots, right? And that might have been as worse than the encounter itself.
More painful than the bite. Yeah.
That wasn't the bunch in the belly.
Yeah.
Hey, that was it?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
jeez.
And I had to go back. I'm going on memory, which isn't good. I had to go back like once a week for a month or something.
Wow.
And those nurses had their way with my belly fat. So anyway,
it was worse than the grizzly attack. Wow. So did any of this hit like CBC News? Was the National calling you or anything?
I knew you were going to ask that because shortly after it happened, the office got a call from CBC Edmonton, and they wanted to interview me. But my boss at the time said no.
Really?
We don't want to go down that
don't
that
need
road.
The bad press, yeah.
I don't know why.
Huh.
Because I would have been fine with it, but I mean, it's all good information, for people to be people to be aware of, like not every encounter can be deadly,
Yeah.
Some can be lucky.
Yeah.
So have you watched The Revenant? Have you seen that grizzly attack on there? So
yeah.
when you watch it with different eyes, hey? What goes through your mind when you see that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just, when I see that, when I think of that bear that charged me back in BC, I think this was probably the smallest grizzly bear I've ever seen. And a beautiful bear, just beautiful. And if people ask me, well, how big, eh? And she was like, on all fours, she's probably standing that high.
3 foot?
I don't think she would have been 400 pounds.
Yeah.
That's still big enough.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
Still powerful, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, pound for pound. what the Liard Hot Springs black bear attacks. You must be familiar with that.
Yeah.
That bear wasn't much over 200, I think,
Yeah.
and killed 2 and mauled 2 people. So
Yeah.
they're very, very strong
Yeah.
animals. Yeah. Jeez.
Crazy.
I went looking. It was a few days after that, and we're talking around the office, and I went down to the local gun shop thinking I should maybe buy a Defender, and I never did. Like I was this close to buying one, and I had a method to carry it on my vest all figured out, but I never did buy one, and the company really didn't want us carrying guns out there, which I can understand in a way. And honestly, I don't want to shoot a grizzly bear anyway. But then people go, "Oh, you better hit them than you,"
Right.
But anyway,
Wow. Yeah, we've been waiting all to hear that story. I like that. That's
I actually, because you hear lots of stories of, like fight the black bear, play dead for the grizzly. Okay, black bear or a big cat or something, what are you going to fight it with? I always carried a big knife, right, beside my bear spray. But then you know what I went and bought? I went and bought one of these little kids' Little League aluminum baseball bats, and I had a piece of PVC pipe riveted to my vest, and I had it so I could slide this bat in there, because I thought, like I'm thinking black bears or cougars, right?
Right.
Like I don't want to be picking up a piece of dead wood
Right.
and slapping a black bear with it. I'm going to have something a little bit stronger. So that gave me quite a bit of comfort.
It's interesting
for the
you
rest of my
you
career.
should say that. Morse Kahansky, one of the world's most famous survival instructors who just passed away here, lived in this area. He talked about using a bear bat as safety. If you don't have bear spray or a firearm, he said the best thing you can do is carve yourself a bat, almost like a baseball bat.
That's neat.
And I could see it for cougars and black bears for grizz, and I've had the opportunity to work with grizzlies on when they were being tranquilized, and they're just like 4 times bigger than me, right? I don't know how much a bat would do, but on a smaller black bear, I think that's better than nothing, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think the thing too, like listening to the story too, everything just happens so quick that you can be so prepared. You've got your bear spray and you've got your gun or your knife or whatever. But when she's charging you,
if it's like bear spray's probably great. I've never sprayed an animal with it, but unless I would have had it right in my hand, coming up that hill. There's no way. She was on me 2 seconds. She covered that 25 meter, just boom.
Well, we say the bears will run at over 40 feet a second. They've been tracked at that speed. So you put that in thick bush when you're unprepared.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a game of quick draw, right? Like who's the fastest draw of the West, right? How quick can you get it out and have the sense to pull your tab off?
right?
So right now, like I've had numerous bear encounters, and when I see them, the first thing I do is pull the bear spray, pull the safety off right away.
As soon as you see it.
As soon as I see them, because again, 40 feet a second, that's fast. Right?
Yeah. And I've seen other grizzlies in the area around here, but they were always going the other way, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Most of the time, that's what happens anyways. You see them, they're they're heading away, but
there was
sometimes they'll come and bite your toe off.
just west of the park, Switzer Park, just west of, we're developing that area, and it was the same gentleman. Now he's an employee who was with me that day, and he was with me this day west of Jarvis Lake. More west of Greg Lake, up on that F road that crosses the highway. Another road, a famous road.
Yeah.
Anyway, and there were a big sow grizzly with 2 big cubs. They like probably 2-year-olds, and they're all hanging out together. And I encountered them numerous times. It was almost a daily occurrence. I don't know. But they were always going the other way. And then one day I was by myself, no dog. I think we were between dogs, and I had laid a road out. So I'm probably 3 kilometers from my truck, and I knew I was coming up to a seismic line. It was heavy alder along the seismic line, and I saw something go by in front of me, and I go, "Oh, that's those bears. They're on that seismic line," and they just went by like they're getting out of my way. I stepped out on the seismic line, and I looked, and about 20 feet away is the biggest cougar I've ever seen in this country. Oh, yeah, and just stand there looking at me.
Jeez.
And just again, a magnificent animal, eh? And I'm talking to it, and it's just like a house cat, It's doing this, and its tail is just going like this.
Yeah.
And this seismic line broke down over a little knoll, and then further down, and the cat. I just, I didn't even. I knew, I had my bear spray out, but the cat just kind of turned around and walked, and then it went over that hill, and now I can't see it. and then I was more nervous then.
Right.
Yeah, I swear I walked backwards for 3 kilometers.
Well, they could jump 30 feet, those cougars, right? Yeah.
Scott, we got a couple questions for Ask Scott on this podcast, too. We got to dig into.
Okay.
It's time for Ask Scott. Email your questions to wildernesswave@outlook.com.
Okay, first question for Ask Scott. This one from Brian. He emailed, and you can email your questions too to wildernesswave@outlook.com. Favorite cooking utensil to bring with you into the backcountry?
Well, this is going to sound really boring, but a pot.
Yeah.
And I looked it up. I was like, is a pot a utensil? Yes, by definition it is.
Is this a homemade pot you made out of a tree log or something?
And, well, I've done that too. You could burn out a log. So let's get into that briefly, because, George, you and I have talked about if you could only bring 2 things in the bush, right? It's a knife and a lighter.
Knife or a lighter, yeah.
If you could bring a third thing, it would be a pot, because shelter, water, fire, food. After 3 days without drinking, you are comatose in the bush. So you do need to purify your water. So your pot is really a survival item. Mm-hmm. I do have a nice bushcraft pot. It's got a nice little handle, and I build a tripod, and I can cook stews in there. I can make my coffee or my wilderness tea or soups. And the value of a metal pot is really life-saving. So I know it's
boring.
It's boring, but super vital. Yeah.
Would you would you drink these days out of a stream, like a spring?
I had a really bad experience as a kid. Ended up in the hospital, so I learned my lesson. But I will drink from high mountain streams. Let's say I'm on the Skyline Trail and I can see the water source.
Right, kind of at the source.
Yeah, then I will. Whitehorse Wildland, I've drank it out of the river and been fine. But you never know. Like, I've been in places where you thought the water was fine and found a dead bighorn sheep further upstream. You never know what's sitting in there.
But I guess lots of people watch these shows on the History Channel called Survivor,
right?
And they're great shows, and they're all like survival experts, right?
Yeah.
And the same thing, like they can take 3 things, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is a pot. And I was, like I'd worked in the latter part of my career. I was like the steep slope guy, right? So I was doing all of the forest planning along the Front Range from here well down into the Blackstone River and down in that country. But anyway, I just thought of that because on the weekend my daughter and her family were camped down at Grave Flats in one of them big open meadows, and I hadn't really explored it much. Jody and I just went down for the day, but right behind the camp was this beautiful spring. And and the source was like really
Right
close.
there,
Like
yeah.
I didn't whack through the willows to actually find where it was coming out of the ground, but it was the most lovely water. And I didn't drink it, but I asked my daughter. I said, would you drink this?
Yeah.
And of course she's a nurse, and oh no, I think I'd boil it first. But I mean, and I ran into a lot of those, right?
Sure.
Because we had to buffer springs and wetlands and But I did drink a lot of water and filled my water bottle up at a source spring.
And you never got Giardia? No.
Never did.
Yeah, you must have, like, getting dropped off by helicopter for 10 days. Not like they're dropping you off with a bunch of Aquafina.
Yeah.
No.
Well, and of course our ancestors didn't have to, right? They were used to drinking out of natural sources, so we've become a lot less accustomed to that sort of thing. But back to the pot, if you don't bring a pot, think about this, and you need to purify water.
Oh yeah.
You're going to have to burn out a log, and I've done this. You burn out a log with your fire, and then you heat the rocks in the fire, make some tongs out of willow, drop the rocks into the pot, and pour your water in to boil it. It's a hell of a job just to get this stuff purified. Or to make your stew or your tea, you can do it, but a metal pot is revolutionary.
Oh, yeah. That saves you some time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Save your life. Yeah.
Okay, one more this one's from Phil. He says, I've never heard you talk about ATVs. Do you ever quad to get further into the backcountry?
ATVs. Oh, boy.
Yeah, you ever
now,
do it?
Now we're getting personal. ATVs. Yeah, no, I have for work. I've used ATVs, and they are fun. Let's be honest. But in general, I'd rather be on horse or on foot.
Okay.
It just feels a little more natural, a little less degradation to the trails and to the streams and waterways and also the noise. But I can see they're a valuable tool certain times.
Oh, especially if you're hunting and stuff, you got to get something out.
Yeah, pulling a moose out. Done that before with an ATV. So, yeah, they're a double-edged sword for sure. And I'm sure, Morris, here, you've used plenty of ATVs for work and
At
snowmobiles.
work for sure.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the talks come around to this because, like I said, my daughter and her partner and the kids, and there was a bunch of people from Whitecourt, and I don't know how many side-by-sides they were. And I finally got talked into going side-by-siding, right? But I knew it was going to be, we're either going to be in the dust on a logging road or we're going to be whacking down some crazy trail, and all that came true. And I don't need it. I did enough of that at work. And, but yeah, and they're, that's what they're down there for, big motorhomes and trailers and side-by-sides and quads. And like you say, it's fun. I mean, I have a couple of motorcycles, but I don't have a quad. I would never buy a quad.
What kind of motorbikes you got? Like, you doing like enduro?
I have an adventure bike behind your garage that I just rode down, and then I have a Harley.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
My dad wants to get I think he's looking at some enduros. That's kind of the plan. He had a Harley a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he did a couple trips with some buddies. They went down to Vegas. He said, like, he just could never relax. Like when you're driving, you're always kind of on edge and stuff. So he just didn't like that.
Head on a swivel.
Yeah.
Kind of like working in the bush.
Yeah. So send your questions in for Ask Scott, wildernesswave@outlook.com. Best way to do that. We had talked about this. I think you brought this up in the intro there, Scott, about snow caving. What's snow caving?
Yeah,
What's the story with that, Morris?
I noticed in Morris's bio here with the backcountry skiing, he was snow caving. I used to teach snow caving and quinzies and igloos and snow trenches. I've slept in all of them. I think I shared one experience where one collapsed on me, so they aren't without their danger. But really be curious with you, Morris, your backcountry ski adventures and snow caving. Paint a picture for us. What were you doing there?
We that's kind of my startup into backcountry skiing, and I never really, because I hiked for a living for 40 years, I wasn't one to throw a pack on and hike. I've never hiked the Skyline Trail. I'm almost embarrassed to say that because I've lived here for so long. But I just, you do that all week, and what do you want to do on the weekend? Go hiking?
Yeah.
I have some buddies that probably would, but no, I haven't done a lot of hiking. I've done a lot of skiing with a pack on my back, and we got started, we're all on skinny telemark equipment, and the whole equipment thing evolved as we evolved. Our skills got better and our equipment got heavier and bigger. But we used to go, one of our favorite trips was you went down 93, the Icefield Parkway, to the big circle below Parker's Ridge, and we parked right there. And then you head west, and that takes you right into the toe of the Saskatchewan Glacier.
Yeah.
i.e. the headwaters of the North Saskatchewan River. And of course that ice field is doing the same as the Columbia ice field, disintegrating. But yeah, we used to go up there. It was almost an annual event, a bunch of us, and we up in there we were always fortunate to be able to dig a snow cave, and you're essentially finding a big drift.
Yeah.
And we ski into this valley and you go, oh, that looks like a big snow drift there, right? So it's not a Quincy where you have to pile snow up and wait for an hour to let it harden. This is a hard wind blowing natural feature, and you just start digging. And we dug some big snow caves. There were like 6 or 7 of us sleeping on a platform in the snow cave. And it's like you would get up in the night to go out for a pee, and it's like 20 below outside, and it's like +2 in that snow cave.
So did you have a cold well and sleeping platforms?
Yep. You dig in.
Yep.
You dig in, I'm going to say, like 5 feet, and then you dig up.
Right.
So your sleeping platform is above the entrance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a huge difference because back in the day I took thermometers because I thought maybe it was a bit of a old wives' tale, and I set thermometers in the cold well and on my platform. So let's say it's -30 outside. It was like -10 or so in the cold well, and as you said, it was about around 0 on the platform. It makes a huge difference. It actually works to have that cold well. So how much snow did you have over your heads, though?
I was just going to say, we, once we dug it, we had it, okay, that's big enough. And, and then we're taking turns, right? Because it like you're getting warm in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, you got to, you got shifts going on, and it would probably take a couple hours to dig that big of a cave. And then the next thing you do is you go out and you stick a pole through the roof,
right,
to see how much you have for a roof. And we would still have like a meter of snow, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the last thing you did after 3 days when you were going to leave, everybody got their skis on, and you'd go up on top and try and break it.
Yeah.
And the ones up in the Castleguard Meadows there, it was so thick, there's no way you're going to break it.
Yeah, because I had a shelter collapse on me and I had to get rescued. So, and snow was heavy, man. There was nothing I could do.
This was solid. Like it was hard digging. It was almost like it was avalanche debris snow, but it wasn't. It was just wind drifted over, over
hard
the winter.
pack. Yeah.
But we had, we also dug them. I remember one trip we were up above Shangri-La, and there were people staying there, and we went up above the cabin and dug into a drift there and we knew we didn't have much of a roof during the night because of all the heat inside. The whole thing sagged. It never did collapse. Like guys were waking up, they're going, holy Jesus, and I'm a pretty sound sleeper, right? And I'm just going, but finally they're going, you better get out. Now guys are like, we had good sleeping bags, right? You could just sleep outside in some of the, minus 20, minus 30 down bag.
Right.
And when I finally decided to leave, the snow was like right there, like 6 inches above my face. And that was not a good snow cave.
So were you backpacking or were you carrying all your sleeping gear as you're skiing then? Or did you stash gear and then kind of
it was,
day trip?
It would take a day to get into the Columbia ice fields.
Yeah.
So then you're just day skiing, like yo-yo skiing.
Yeah.
You'd maybe, we never did, or I never made it to Columbia, but there was Mount Castlegar, which was a pretty easy summit and a nice ski down, and it was, kind of on the south side of the Columbia ice fields proper. But and there was so much snow. We weren't roped up on that particular on those trips because we kind of maybe got over. I don't know what you want to call it, but we always thought, if we stayed in the middle of the glacier and then took a direct path off the edge, because most of your fissures and cracks are going to be along the edges. And anyway, I'd been on the Wapta Icefield Traverse, and we were roped up on that. 3 of us. We're staying in cabins though. But then that was my one trip on there, and we got snowed out. So we had to bail from Balfour Hut. But yeah.
You ever come across any avalanche issues?
Not on those trips. Like the only real big avalanche was in the Bald Hills, and we were just day skiing, and we were up there, and we'd kind of played all day, and we were heading back, and a big cornice broke off one of the mountains above us and in front of us. And had we kept going on our route, we probably would have been wiped out.
Sheesh.
But we hadn't quite got there, and somebody yelled avalanche, and I looked up and I saw the cornice break.
Yeah.
It was coming down, and I just turned and got out of there as fast as we could. And it probably, like, I was leading the group, and from where I turned around to the first, and these chunks of snow are like the size of pickup trucks, right? And you couldn't stick your pole in them. So if you get hit by one of those, it's lights out. But they were probably, I don't know, probably 75 feet in front of us kind of thing. So it did come down and cross our paths. But
crazy.
No, I've been, I was going to say I've been lucky, but, it's all about terrain management, right?
Yeah, sure. Picking your times. You still avid skier then?
Since COVID, I haven't been on a backcountry trip, and our backcountry trips turned into huts.
Yeah.
And chalets.
Yeah, that's a little more relaxing. Yeah.
As money became more plentiful, and and these places opened up, like, my God, it was like discovering candy when we'd go into Dave Henry Lodge versus a snow cave.
Yeah.
And then I've been into Kokanee Glacier Chalet. Well, that's a palace, in the middle of nowhere.
A little better than a snow cave. Nice bottle of scotch. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like leaving Devil's Club for tree planting.
Sounds like it.
And then, so you retired a few years ago.
I retired in 2017.
Yeah. How you been keeping busy since retirement then?
Skiing in the winter.
Marmot Basin?
Yep. We've always had a pass, it was a family pass, and the kids and I don't know how, but of course, if you work long enough, you get a lot of holidays, right?
Yeah.
So one year, I had 49 days at Marmot, and that was with my kids.
Yeah.
They would get these golden Fridays, and I had enough holidays and enough seniority that, if I wasn't at work on a Friday and it had snowed Thursday night, everybody in the office knew where I was, right? And that continued on. Last year, I had 52 days.
No way.
The year before that, 72.
You're kidding. That's nuts.
But that, there's friends I know in Jasper that, ski every day. And, of course, it's a shorter drive.
Yeah.
But, we have the Nordic Center, and I do a certain amount of that. And then I burn a lot of firewood, so there's firewood getting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentioned you got a camper van now.
Yeah.
How do you like that?
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's for the most part, it's good. We've got, we're into the e-bike program.
Oh, perfect.
So I got a bike rack on the back, or I also bought a little utility trailer.
Yeah.
Covered trailer that I can throw a motorcycle in.
Oh,
as
perfect.
well as mountain bikes.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
And hunting-wise, hunting days are behind you. You said you hunted moose and deer, and we're heading into hunting season here, so I've got the itch.
I know it.
I got the itch.
It's here.
I just, I used to love to. Honestly, my hunting was, a lot of it was done at work.
Yeah.
Now that you're retired, you can tell the true stories.
Yeah. We own the company truck, and I mean, if you shot a moose early in the morning, then you'd make up for it some other day, right? Yeah.
Love it. Love it.
I dragged a few moose out of the bush all by myself.
Yeah.
And that's when moose was general, right?
Right.
Now I've never put in for a draw.
Well, you're looking like 8 years now to get drawn. It's pretty long in these parts. Yeah.
I got drawn last year and didn't get one, so now I'm like, geez.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I don't mind deer hamburger, so I'm thinking I'm maybe close to reactivating that program.
There's a few of them around.
Well, with the price of meat, I tell you,
I
went to buy burgers the other night and I couldn't believe it. We've run out of wild game, and it kills me to pay those prices, right?
Morris, we really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh yeah, it was fun.
Story. Yeah,
I've talked about this encounter so many times.
I bet. It's one of those things where someone hears that you've been attacked by a grizzly bear.
I could do it in my sleep.
Yeah.
I think Scott saw this, but I even have my kids bought me. Did you see that?
I have not seen it.
that?
So Morris has got a grizzly tattoo.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
On his calf muscle there. Look at that.
My two kids bought me that.
Yeah.
He goes, Dad, you don't have any stitches or anything.
Yeah.
You should get a tattoo. And I go, no. And that took a few years before that happened.
Yeah.
Nice.
But a fellow in Whitecourt did that. I've had some positive comments on it.
Yeah. No, that looks great.
Yeah.
Scott, Northern Rockies Bushcraft on Instagram. Actually, probably the time this podcast comes out, you'll have done the mushroom show, but you're doing a mushroom.
Yeah, doing a mushroom program. If anybody can time travel by the time this comes out, come back in time and check it out. It'll be on Friday night. Learn your edible mushrooms. It's crazy out there right now. I can't walk in the bush without coming back with jackets full and hats full and backpacks full of mushrooms. So yeah.
I think the next episode I'm going camping with a buddy and his kid here. We might do a live one there, and then, as you mentioned, hunting season here. So we'll have to do a couple. If you guys want to come on talk hunting, so We'll get into that too.
Yeah, absolutely. We could get you live in the bush and do a mushroom walk too. You've got the technology.
Yeah.
Right? That'd be fun.
That would be a good time. Yeah, let's do that too. I like that idea. Morris, if people want to get a hold of you, do you want people to get a hold of you? You want them to follow you on Instagram or anything like that? Morris Archibald. They can track you down.
Yeah, I don't know.
Morris the Humble.
Morris the Humble. It was great. It was great. Great story. Super. I got to get a picture of the yearbook picture of my dad too. I'm going to show him. We're going camping with him down by Catamount this weekend, so I'll show him the picture there. And I want to get my dad on too and get his. He's done a lot of like horseback riding and trips back in the Wilmore, so I want to get some of that perspective and dig into that a bit too. It's just trying to convince my dad on the podcast it's difficult, but I think
you have to show me a picture of him
nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
Less hair. Besides that, he is still into the same cars, and yeah, still kicking along for sure. So
right on.
Yeah. Another episode of the Wilderness Wavelength podcast. If you want to get a hold of us, wildernesswave@outlook.com. Best way to do that. Follow us on Instagram. And thanks, everyone, for all the reviews coming in on Spotify. It's been great. And, anything else you guys want to add before I shut this down?
Oh, it's good to finally get Morris here. So
perfect.
Yeah, it took a couple weeks, but finally worked out.
Excellent.
Wilderness Wavelength.